Can we have it over here too? If you step forward, we can have the same picture here, please. And here. And in this camera, please. Thank you very much. Great. Would you be so kind? And here, thank you. And here, please.
Hello and welcome. Good evening. A lot of things are different from usual at this Berlinale, but fortunately there are many well-known names in the competition, including François Ozon, who received a Silver Bear at the 2019 Berlinale for his film by the grace of God. He now has the great honor of opening this year's festival with his film Peter von Kant. It is a variation of the famous Fassbinder film The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, his tribute to his idol Fassbinder, but also an internal view of the madness of creativity in filmmaking. Denis Ménochet is stellar in the leading role. Isabelle Adjani and Fassbinder icon Hanna Schigula also star.
On peut enlever les mains.
I'm going to start because we're a tiny bit late. Welcome to the press conference for Peter von Kant, the opening film of the 72nd Berlin International Film Festival. We are going to converse in French, donc je change de langue.
So I will switch language
Je vais d'abord présenter nos invités. En commençant par votre gauche,
Now, starting from your left, first of all,
son travail virtuose sur les films du duo Kate Forzani lui a valu déjà 2 prix.
outstanding work. He's already earned 2 Magritte prizes for best photography in his native Belgium. This is the 3rd time he's worked together with François Ozon. That's Manu Dacos, director of photography. The absolute revelation of this film was Khalil Garbia as Amir. He's very popular in Berlin. Several of his films have been in competition. Last time was 2019, where he got the grand prize of the jury, which was François Ozon, director from France. And inspiration to Europe's top filmmakers, as well as Hollywood's, the outstanding Herr von Kant, Denis Ménochet. One first question from me to the director. Welcome, François. The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant was also shown in competition exactly 50 years ago in 1972 at the Berlinale. And this is not the first time you've adapted a film of Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Could you talk a little bit about your relationship with Fassbinder and what your intentions were behind this film? Well, Rainer Werner Fassbinder was one of the major filmmakers I grew up with. I discovered his films when I was quite young. And his cinema was something that helped me to get onto my own development path. I see him as a big brother, if you like. And when I was a student, I basically went through his whole oeuvre, which were very moving to me, but also very interesting aesthetically and politically for me. So 20 years ago, I adapted a play, Tropfen auf Eisenstein, which was already a story about love and about power. Now, my desire to come back to Fassbinder really comes from the French lockdown, when all directors were wondering whether they'd be able to continue making films and under what circumstances. So I then came back to The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. It was quite an unusual filming process. We were basically all locked up there because of COVID. And it started as a play, of course. It's quite autobiographical. In 1975, and I talked to Julien Lorenz, his last partner, who told me that it was indeed about his backstory with his actor Günther Kaufmann. So with this incarnation of it, I decided to come back to this classic, but with the sexes reversed. Right. And to your left.
Okay, then it's fine. You'll both get to talk.
Bonjour, Anne-Christine Loranger de Séquence Montréal.
I'm Christine Loranger from Séquence Montréal. Mr. Ménochet, you're so sweet. And it almost sounds like your surname, Mignon Ménochet. No, I wasn't here for that reason. But you were great. Well, thank you very much. In the film, I meant. What was it like for you playing this character? You're basically playing Fassbinder in this relationship. It seems to destroy him. It brings him to the end of his wits. There's really a lot going on in there. So could you speak to us also about how you worked with Khalil, who's a young actor? So how do you, as a very experienced actor, work with somebody who's almost a beginner, who's very fresh as an actor? All right, okay. Well, the play, The Bitter Tears, was just a role to play. There are lots of notes in there, so it's a job for me to do. Now, I know François Ozon very well now, so we trust each other, so I could really do it to the full. I had that ability to relax in front of his camera, and then we looked for somebody to play Amir, and we were privileged to meet lots of actors, but clearly when Khalil walked into the room, we knew it was going to be him. He's the one. Because he was very willing to learn and also hugely talented, like a kind of James Dean, a natural talent. So I was able to go right to the limit with him, thanks to François. Right. There was a question which didn't go to the microphone. How did you work together? Well, we talked it through a lot. It was like being in a holiday camp, if you like, because it's really just us living in a closed space. But he really used all his talents, and he helped me too for some of the more daring scenes where I was a bit nervous, and yeah, he just pushed me, just made me go for it. And yeah, it was great to work with him. It was not about how much experience each of us had, it was more about generosity of spirit. Right. Before going back to you, can we ask Khalil for his views on the same question? It was your first major part. How did you prepare? Well, how did I prepare? It helped that I had a month and a half, 2 months of physical work to do with a coach. And physically, my physique got to a point which I didn't even expect. And I felt that I had less and less to put on, and I was very lucky to work with Denis, and I felt that there was a lot that was fueling me and taking me forward, and he gave me that confidence. So as soon as we started rehearsing with him, I felt much more confident and motivated. So I wanted to give him the liberty to really be that character and come forward. But he gave me that confidence and sense of protection throughout the whole shooting process. Yeah. He was the one who got me going. So I'm very grateful to him. And I'm sure it's thanks to him that the shooting went so well. On our right. There you go.
Hello. First of all, thanks for this work, because I did really fall in love with it from first moment till the last. I've got two questions. The first one, I did not expect it, but in the film, especially starting from the moment when Amir goes away and Petr tries to force him to stay, and further until the end when his actor's friend says that you are a great director but a terrible human being, and you make films about helping weak people, but you are acting from the point of strong people. In all this narrative, I see a lot of so modern topic about canceling culture, about Me Too movement. Was it your intention? Was it your intention in the first place, and how did it evolve? And second question about the visual art and audio art of the film. So it seems very precise, the way you choose colors, you choose songs, you choose when they speak French and when they speak German. How did you work on it as well? It's, the second question is for Monsieur Ozon, and the first one to both Monsieur Ozon and some other members of the team, if you want to answer it. Thank you.
C'est vrai qu'en relisant le texte,
when you go back to Fassbinder's text, it really does have bits that resonate with you today. There's something universal on dominant relationships in particular, but as a director, you have to ask yourself those questions because you are in a powerful position. What do you do with it? What kind of relationship should you have with the actors? Because you have to go out there and direct. So I used this text to ask these questions to myself and the audience. And I think if the pull that Peter von Kant had on Amir was real at the beginning, that gets turned around later on. So it becomes a much more ambiguous relationship. It's not a simple binary opposition of work and love. Now, your second question was about the use of German. Now, as soon as I was able to work with Hanna Schigula, an actress I have a lot of respect for, and she was in the original 1972 film as well, I wanted to hear her speaking German. Now, it's pleasant for people in France to hear people speaking French with a German accent. German actresses are very popular in France. It goes back to Madame Schneider. So I wanted to get her speaking German too. So we made that division together, and she told me that about this lullaby, this children's song about the shepherd as well, which I didn't know before. And so I wanted to get her singing that as Marlène. Right, there's a second broader question, I think, about the very specific approach of the film to visual composition. So perhaps I could ask you and Manu talk a little bit about how you prepared the film in that respect. Well, Manu wasn't that familiar with Fassbinder's work, so I gave him a few recommendations. And one of the big inspirations of Fassbinder was Dublasseur, another person who I've got a lot of respect for. Now, in the 1970s, Rainer Werner Fassbinder had limited funds available and shot The Bitter Tears in a couple of weeks or so. And he went back to Querelle, or The Secret of Veronica Voss, at the end of his career, and adopted a more Hollywood style, closer to the 1950s approach to cinema. Yeah, we basically took inspiration from various directors, including in Hollywood. Now, the film is divided into chapters, so we took a different color scheme for each chapter of the plot. We decided to have a strong color scheme on the walls in particular, and also a lot of shiny material on the walls that produce an image through it.
My question is to director, and I just remind some words from Petra von Kant, and she says that I think that people need each other, but they haven't learned how to live together. You like to go through people's mind, what they think. You like think about people relations. In your movies, we can find very interesting questions and answers also. What did you learn when you work on this film, when you thought about Fassbinder's movie, now your new movie? Did you learn something new point about people's relations to each other? Thank you.
Oui, je pense que j'ai appris.
Yes, I think I did learn a lot about human relationships and relationships of power. As I was mentioning just now, things are pretty complex. Power is not necessarily what you think it is. At the same time, what I was really trying to do was bring out the suffering of the character of Peter von Kant. He is not a very lovable character until you see him suffering, you see his pain, and you see a much more intimate side of him. And talking about Hanna Schigula, about Fassbinder, it really told me that that was his dilemma. There was no such thing as pure love for him. He always had relationships that didn't satisfy him. He had such an idealized picture of love and human relationships that he had a string of disappointments. And so it's very much about suffering. That's the impression I get from it.
My question is for Mr. Ozon. In this festival, we saw your wonderful film about pedophilia 3 years ago. Grazie a Dio. What do you think about the apologize from Ratzinger in these days? How do you feel about that?
C'est un peu hors sujet là.
Well, it's a bit off topic, that one. I don't know exactly how he apologized. I'm not up to date with that, so I can't really comment on that because I don't know exactly what he said. Right, the gentleman over there.
Corriere della Sera, Italy. To Ozon, it seems to me that Fassbinder has been forgotten in Germany. What's your opinion about?
C'est aux Allemands qu'il faut demander ça.
Well, you should ask people in Germany about that one. But I do get the sense that he's not seen as a prophet in his own land. He has such strong and striking cinematic oeuvre that it's perhaps difficult for people in Germany to look at themselves in the mirror like that. But in France, it's clear for us, he's very, very popular. But I think the political and social vision that he had about post-Nazi Germany was such a tough message that I think that it was a bit difficult for the Germans to look at themselves in the mirror like that. But I don't know if I'm right.
My name is Mahari Sigit. I have a question for Mr. Ozon and one for the cameraman. In this film, you play on relation, that you use a woman to bring in a new world. Was it challenging to do this? Because we know the film by Fassbinder was a woman. Here is a man. How did you try this? And then I wanted to know about this wireless telephone. That was all. Why did you use this? Is it a fictional or? And then about the camera, if you can talk about the work, the body work.
Donc il y a plusieurs questions.
Okay, so several questions there. I think the first one was about what changed when Petra became Peter. All right. Well, I didn't want to redo what Fassbinder did so well first time round. I wanted to be more like a playwright who takes a classic work and modernizes it and puts it in a different context. So I was interested in doing that by changing the sexes, betraying Fassbinder's text, if you like. But I'm inspired by Fassbinder because it's autobiographical for him, and he projected himself into a female character in that film. So I found it a very dynamic thing to do, to change the genders there. All right, and the second thing was about how you filmed the relationship between the characters, and that's a question for Manu Decos. Well, body work or physical work, I mean, we didn't have a purely body work. I mean, we had some editing that was done. I didn't see it as a purely physical job. We worked on colors and on bodies, but, you know, we prepared a lot in advance too. Right. My name is Joachim. I'm from ZDF German TV. A question for Denis Ménochet. What side of Mr. Ozon's personality is in the role of Peter von Kant? Well, yeah, the way he doesn't trust actors. You know, he's impatient like a ship's captain, and you've got to get somewhere, and you don't have time to explain that. Well, François is like that, but not that much like that. But if there's anything, I think it's probably his impatience. Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Actually, it's the third time you've worked together, Denis and François. Was confidence important for you in this project? Oh, totally, yeah. Me and Denis, we have worked 3 times together. 3 times now. We did Dans la Maison, and by the grace of God, we know each other very well now, so I thought of him straight away for this part, and I was happy that he accepted. He accepted with trepidation, but also excitement. We did a lot of work in the run-up so that he could give such a generous and confident performance where he really lets himself into that role. Now, it's not often you see male characters in such emotional states, and they cry. He cries. Now, you could have called the film "The Bitter Tears of Peter von Kant." So Denis really gave his all to the character. My name is Rodrigo. I'm from Portugal. I'd like to ask you a little bit about the music of the film. Could you tell us a little bit? Right. The film's music takes a song originally called "In My Room," where you have Peter and Amir dancing. So I'm a bit of a Fassbinder fetishist there. So I took a song that Jeanne Moreau sings in the film Querelle, and then we translated the song into German. Then we got Isabelle Adjani to sing it, and it was great to have her singing voice because I appreciate her as a singer. Her mother was actually German, so she has some German herself. So it was brilliant to be able to record that music and have her do it.
Hello, I'm Mona Tabara from the UK. Can I ask François what other projects you have got coming up?
Oui.
Sure. Well, basically, I do 1 film a year, so I'm getting ready for a new film, which I expect to be very different.
Hello, Monsieur Ozon. My name is Marc Spiesecke for Wikimedia Germany. I was just watching the original movie yesterday, and now yours, and I have the feeling you're just hurrying through the movie until in the middle when just Denis Ménochet and Khali Gabia.
We can't hear you very well, sorry.
I watched the original movie yesterday, and it has a screen time of 120 minutes. Yours is just 90 minutes long, and I have the feeling you're just hurrying through the movie, especially in the beginning and in the end, and you're getting your tone in the middle after the night between Denis Minochet and Khalil Ghabia. Why you didn't modernize your movie, maybe why it's not taking place in Berlin in 2019 before the pandemic situation?
Je sais pas, parce que j'aime les années 70.
I don't know really, because I'm a fan of the 70s, and I wanted to go back into that period. I already did the 70s in another of my films, De son Pierre Brûlant, but that was in a different milieu. I didn't want to have mobile phones or other modern things from today in the film. I wanted to stay in the 1970s. So that was for aesthetic reasons principally, and also it doesn't stand in the way of making statements or having a dialogue with the present day. Sometimes you have to take some historical distance to shed light on the present day. Now, my tempo is different to Fassbinder's tempo, which is a bit slower, but when you adapt something, some things aren't going to change.
Hi, Carlos Grau from Spain. My question is for Denis Minochet, and I'm very happy to see you in a main role. Mostly we see you in side roles, and I think you're a super talented, great actor. That I wanted to say that I think most of us are very happy to see you in a main role. My question is the approach you make depending on the character, because in terms of empathize, Peter von Kant is a very emotional character.
Yeah.
But for example, in Just Qualaguag is kind of a character with no emotions at all. So as an actor, how do you prepare such different roles depending on, the movie? Thank you.
By placing myself emotionally in the circumstances of the film or the play, and be honest and truthful with those circumstances, with my feelings. Thank you. Yes.
Merci. Et tout d'abord, je vous remercie pour ce film.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you very much for the film, and just happens to be from 1972, the first film, and we're at the 72nd Berlinale. I'd like to ask a film about another character, Karl, who's fascinating, but nobody's asked about him. Well, yeah, that was Marlene's role in the original film, which is fun because when Anna Schigula met the actor who plays Karl, she said, "You've got a great part. You don't say a word, but you've got to really bring the house down." And then the actor who I had playing Karl really knows his stuff. He was able to be strange and humble and also very complicated, because if you've seen the Fassbinder film, you'll remember the actress who played that, and he managed to do something completely different. Oh yeah, and Stéphane Tréton was very much invested in the role. When I asked him after shooting how it was going, he told me that he'd put the name Karl on his door, at his house in Brittany. So, like the others, you're going to hear a lot about Stéphane Tréton. He's got a lot coming up ahead. Last question, over here, please.
First, congratulations on the film. So I noticed people in the screening hall of the one I'm in, they laugh sometimes when there's something funny coming out. So my question is about the comic element in the film, because compared to the original Fassbinder's one, this one seems to have a lot of humor in it. So is it by design or so? Yeah.
C'est venu très naturellement avec.
Well, it just came quite naturally with the text we were working with. You can play it more or less melodramatically, or with a bit of distance at times. I always deal with humor and distance in my films. At times you need to take a step back from stuff when it gets too serious, and especially some of the moments with Isabelle Adjani. There were funny bits which weren't in the original one because Lani's character wasn't developed that much, so I was able to have her work more on that. So her character settled scores with the others, and there were bits of humor there. Now, also in what happens with Peter von Kant, but also in the stylistic approach and the way the original script dealt with Petra von Kant, there were bits of humor in there too. Right, thank you very much. We have to end it here. And thank you very much to all of our guests. We hope you have a great festival. Well, thank you.